What if I told you that the reason your business is bleeding customers every single month has absolutely nothing to do with your product, your price, or your competition, and everything to do with one invisible mistake you are making the moment someone says yes to you? What if the entire growth strategy you've been chasing, the ads, the funnels, the new offers, is just you filling a bucket that has a giant hole at the bottom? I've seen businesses spending $50,000 a month acquiring customers they lose in 30 days. And I've seen scrappy operators with half the budget build empires simply because they understood one brutal truth. Retention is not a loyalty program. It is not a discount. It is not a thank you email. Retention is the result of how deeply you change someone's life after they buy from you. So stay with me, because in the next few minutes, I am going to hand you the exact framework that turns a one-time buyer into a customer who can't imagine their life without you. Let's get into it. The churn is not the problem, it's the symptom. Most businesses treat customer churn like a fire to put out. Wrong. Churn is your report card. It tells you exactly where your promise broke down. The moment you stop seeing churn as bad luck and start reading it as feedback, you gain the most powerful data your business has ever had. The day one experience determines everything.
The first 48 hours after a customer buys from you decides whether they stay for a week or a lifetime.
Most businesses celebrate the sale and go cold. Winners obsess over the onboarding. They engineer a moment of instant relief, a holy cow, this actually works moment, before the customer's doubt even shows up. Value delivery versus value perception. Know the difference. You can deliver enormous value and still lose the customer because they never perceived it. Customers don't remember what you did for them. They remember what they noticed. Your job is not just to deliver results. It's to make those results visible, undeniable, and impossible to forget. Show them their progress constantly. Identity transformation creates unbreakable loyalty products, create transactions. Identity changes create devotion. When your customer starts saying, I am a person who does X because of your brand, they stop being a buyer and start being a believer. You are not selling a service anymore. You are part of who they are. That person does not cancel, ever. The switching cost principle. Make leaving expensive, not with contracts, with depth. The more your product is woven into your customer's workflow, their data, their habits, their community, the more painful it becomes to leave. Every feature, every touch point, every integration is a thread. The more threads, the harder the exit. Build stickiness through usefulness, not traps. The community multiplier. Your customers keep each other. A customer connected to your product is at risk. A customer connected to 10 other customers inside your ecosystem is almost impossible to lose. Community transforms your offer from a tool into a tribe. When leaving your product means leaving the people who understand the most, the math on cancellation completely changes. The churn is not the problem, it's the symptom. What if the thing you've been calling your churn problem is actually your greatest business asset, disguised as a crisis? Every single operator I've ever met is obsessed with stopping the bleed. They throw money at win-back campaigns. They create exit surveys. They offer desperate discounts to people who already have one foot out the door, and none of it works because they are treating the symptom and completely ignoring the disease. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Churn doesn't happen at cancellation. Churn happens the moment your customer quietly stops believing that your product is moving them forward. They just haven't filled out the form yet. By the time they cancel, they checked out emotionally weeks ago. You already lost them. You just hadn't processed the paperwork. So the first thing you have to do before building retention programs, before investing in customer success, before any of that, is develop an honest, ruthless relationship with your churn data. Stop asking, how do we stop people from leaving? Start asking, at what exact moment did we stop delivering on our promise? Map that moment. Fix that moment. Everything else is a band-aid on a broken bone. The day one experience determines everything. What if I told you the customer you're about to lose, you already lost them on day two? Think about the last time you bought something you were genuinely excited about. A new software subscription, a course, a high-end service. You handed over the money, you felt the rush, and then you waited. You got a generic confirmation email, maybe a password reset link, maybe a long onboarding video you never watched. And slowly, quietly, that excitement bled out of you like air from a tire. A week later, you hadn't really started. A month later, you forgot why you bought it. 3 months later, you canceled. This is the single most expensive mistake in business, and almost no one talks about it. The sale is the beginning of the relationship, not the end of the sales process. And the first 48 hours after that sale is when you either cement an evangelist or create a future cancellation. The businesses that print money on retention engineer what I call a quick win sequence. Before your customer can feel doubt, before their brain starts asking whether they made the right decision, you hand them a result, small, fast, undeniable, a transformation they can feel in their hands. You make them successful before they even have time to question whether they will be. That moment, that it's actually working moment, is worth more to your retention than any loyalty program ever built. Value delivery versus value perception. Know the difference. What if your product is genuinely changing people's lives and they're still canceling because they don't know it? This one will make you sick. I've watched businesses deliver incredible, genuine, life-changing results to their customers and still lose them at a brutal rate. Not because the product failed, because the customer never connected the dots between the result and the product. They got the outcome, credited luck or their own effort, and then canceled the thing that actually made it happen. You see, humans are terrible at tracking their own progress over time. We have a negativity bias hardwired into our brains. We remember the frustrations, we forget the wins. This means if you are not actively, intentionally, constantly reflecting a customer's own progress back to them, they will not see it. They will feel stuck, even when they're moving. They will feel like they're not getting value, even when the data shows they absolutely are. Your job is to become the mirror. Build progress dashboards. Send automated look how far you've come messages at the 30, 60, and 90-day marks. Create before and after snapshots. Make the invisible visible. Because here's the brutal reality. A customer who believes they're getting value will not leave, even if a competitor is cheaper. A customer who cannot see the value will leave, even if there is no better alternative. Identity transformation creates unbreakable loyalty. What if the most powerful retention strategy ever invented has nothing to do with your product at all, and everything to do with who your customer becomes because of it? There is a hierarchy of loyalty in business that almost no one talks about. At the bottom, you have customers who use your product because it's convenient. Easy come, easy go. The moment something better shows up, they're gone. One step up, you have customers who use your product because it gets results. Harder to lose, but still price sensitive. Still comparison shopping. And then at the very top, you have customers who use your product because it has become part of their identity. They don't say, I use your software. They say, I'm the kind of person who does things this way. They don't just buy your course. They become the person your course creates. These people do not cancel. They evangelize. They bring their friends. They defend you in comment sections against people they don't even know. How do you create this? You give people a new story about themselves. You name the transformation, not just the feature. You build language that your customers adopt. Words, phrases, a vocabulary that signals belonging. You celebrate their wins publicly. You make them the hero of your brand's narrative. When a person's sense of self is attached to your brand, leaving is not just inconvenient, it feels like losing a piece of who they are. The switching cost principle. Make leaving expensive. What if your best retention strategy is not keeping customers happy? It's making the act of leaving deeply structurally painful. Now, before anyone misunderstands what I'm saying, I am not talking about trapping people with fine print. I am not talking about dark patterns or manipulative contracts that require a lawyer to cancel. That is not a retention strategy. That is a lawsuit waiting to happen, and it will destroy your brand. What I am talking about is depth. Depth of integration. Depth of usefulness. The more deeply woven your product is into your customer's daily life, their data, their workflow, their habits, their team's processes, the higher the real cost of leaving. Because now it's not just cancel and move on. It's cancel, export everything, retrain my team, rebuild all my configurations, and start over with something that doesn't know me yet. That's not a button people press casually. Every feature you build should ask, does this create depth? Does this make us more embedded, more indispensable, more load-bearing in the customer's operation? The businesses that last decades are not the ones with the best acquisition. They are the ones that become structural, like electricity. You don't shop around for a new electricity provider every month. You build that kind of indispensability, and retention stops being a department and starts being a consequence. The community multiplier, your customers keep each other. What if your most powerful retention tool is not something you build for your customers, but something your customers build for each other? Here's the most underrated retention lever in the history of business: community. Not a Facebook group with 3 posts a year. Not a Discord server where tumbleweeds blow through. A real, active, meaningful community where your customers connect, grow, and find people who understand their exact problem, all inside the ecosystem you created. Think about what changes the moment that happens. Before community, your product is a tool. The customer evaluates it purely on ROI. Am I getting enough out of this to justify the cost? The moment you add a genuine community that they value, your product is no longer just a tool. Leaving means losing access to the people. Leaving means losing the conversations, the relationships, the insider knowledge being shared daily. Now, the math on cancellation is completely different. And here's the compounding miracle of this. Community doesn't just retain, it acquires. Your customers bring their peers bring referrals. The community becomes a gravitational force that pulls people in and makes them so embedded, so connected, so reliant on the relationships inside your world that leaving you means losing a community they cannot easily rebuild elsewhere. You stop being a vendor, you become a world they live inside. Let me land this plane for you, because everything I just shared comes down to one radical idea that most businesses will never accept. Acquisition is optional. Retention is mandatory. Every dollar you spend chasing new customers while your existing customers are quietly walking out the back door is a dollar setting itself on fire. The businesses that will dominate the next decade are not going to be the ones who figured out the best ad creative. They will be the businesses that turned their product into an identity, their onboarding into a transformation, their results into undeniable proof, and their customers into a community that polices its own churn. Fix the churn signal before you pour more fuel in the acquisition engine. Engineer the day one experience like your company's life depends on it, because it does. Make value visible constantly. Build identity, not just features. Create depth that makes leaving structurally expensive, and then build the community that makes leaving emotionally impossible. This is not a retention strategy. This is a complete philosophy of how you build a business that earns the right to keep its customers. And the businesses that internalize this deeply, operationally, culturally, do not just retain customers. They build movements. They build legacies. They build the kind of companies that people talk about 20 years from now and say, I can't remember a time I didn't use them. That company can be yours. Now go build.